Welcome back to Day 4 of Mineral Resources Review 2025 here at the Delta Hotel. Today's Thought Leadership is sponsored by Genome Atlantic and brought to you by Gale Force Winds. Joining me this morning is Ian Bliss of Northern Shield Resources. Ian, introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about Northern Shield.
Thank you very much, Jackie. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Ian Bliss. I'm President and CEO of Northern Shield Resources. We're a junior mining company right now focused on a project in the Burin Peninsula of Newfoundland on copper porphyry and epithermal gold. But our background was originally in nickel copper PGEs, and we like exploring. We like to say where no man has gone before. And that typically means Northern Ontario, Northern Quebec, or Greenland, where I did a lot of work. But there's a cost to that, and that is logistics. And we were spending $500,000 a year just on helicopter bills.
Wow.
And so I wanted to try to find a place that met our same criteria of being underexplored without the overhang of high logistical costs. And Newfoundland met that criteria. It's vastly underexplored, particularly the Avalon terrain, and so it suits us perfectly.
Okay, so what part of the Burin Peninsula are you currently exploring and working on?
Right now, we're right outside of Marystown, just about 5 kilometers, not even 5 kilometers off the highway. So again, it meets our criteria. Excellent logistics. Our drilling costs are under $200 a meter all in. We've never seen that in any of our exploration programs before. Literally the drillers can go to Tim Hortons and turn up at the drill and their coffee is still hot. And so, and that exploration costs ultimately are going to be cheaper development costs if we get to that stage. But again, it was right off the highway. The initial discovery was found by a local prospector who'd been working in the area for quite some time, and he was following up on government initiatives where they do regional till or soil sampling programs that highlight areas that may have anomalous gold or copper, and he was following up on that. He found something. It inspired our interest, and now we're in there spending the money. So again, it's an example of all these processes work. The government's initiative of taking those samples to try to stimulate exploration, the prospectors going out there, now Northern Shield coming in, and now with our work, we now have got majors interested in the project by the rocks that we're discovering. So it starts off as a very small investment, but it's certainly beginning to add up, and we like what we see down on the Burin.
Wonderful. So Ian, again, we all know mining tends to be in remote areas in a lot of cases, and then you have to kind of build around it. It sounds like being in the Marystown area, for a company to come in, as you evolve to the next phase, it would be a great location because you already have the community there. And when it comes to, finding housing and all of that for people. So do you feel that that's a great attraction to your project?
It is. Obviously, the housing will be quite far down the road for art, but it's always on the horizon. And certainly, it's when we've been bringing majors to the projects. They come in here and they love Newfoundland. They love the openness. And myself working in Marystown, I don't think I've ever worked in an area where I felt so welcome as an individual or a corporation. And when you bump into people in the stores, in the hotels, or on the ATV trails, and once they hear what you're trying to do, they all want to be part of your success. They say, hey, what can I do to help you be successful? They know the local prospector very well too. They're all rooting for him, and so I'm feeling very welcome. But you're right. We got the infrastructure there. We got rooms. You got accommodation. You have a lot of heavy equipment mechanics, service providers. You got a deep water port. And that's not lost on the majors that we bring in here. And even though it's very early stage, they're looking at this and saying, well, if it's cheap to explore, it's cheap to develop. And you're off the highway, so you got existing infrastructure, you got the deep water port, it's all there. And it really doesn't get better than that when it comes to exploration and mine development.
And hopefully a labor force as well,
yes.
All on the Burin Peninsula. So that sounds wonderful. So what does an event like Mineral Resources Review mean to Northern Shield?
Well, this is obviously a very technical-oriented show. As a CEO president, we go to lots of these conferences around the world and in Canada. Most of them are oriented more towards the investor, attracting investment in. This one's more technical, but they're also very important, and we've always liked to go to as many technical conferences as we can, because it's partly it's giving back to the geological community, but it's also learning. I'm learning what other companies are doing, getting up to speed on their projects. They're getting up to speed on our projects, and it's sort of sharing of information. And you always whether it's other junior mining companies, major mining companies, or the geological survey or service providers. There's a lot of technical feedback, and that's as valuable as finding investors these days. So it's always actually, sometimes it's more intimidating talking to your colleagues on a technical level, but at the same time you get a lot of information sharing back and forth, and there's no real price you can put on that.
Absolutely. And having done multiple interviews all week, I will say that's probably the main theme that a lot of people get out of this conference. And there's just such a high energy and interest. And we all know right now Newfoundland and Labrador is doing quite well with respect to mining. There was, over 250 million spent on exploration this year alone, or they were expecting it, to be that much this year. So those are no small numbers. And you can't replace a face-to-face meeting. So it's been a great networking event in general for pretty much everybody we've spoken to this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really have the perfect storm developing here in the mining world. I mean, we had the perfect storm a few days ago here in St. John's, but the same thing is happening within the mining world here in Newfoundland. We've got bull markets like we've never seen before in a long time. So money is finally beginning to flow, specifically to the juniors. You have prospectors that are going to the bush and come out with mineral discoveries almost weekly here. And then you have success like Calibre, like Firefly, Newfound Gold, that's finally beginning to draw the eyes onto the island of Newfoundland. So you have all this happening in a bull market time, and it's time to make hay when the sun shines, so to speak. So these bull markets don't last forever. They're usually here for a good time, not a long time. But everything seems to be sort of coinciding right now, Newfoundland in the mining world, and it's very vibrant right now.
Excellent. Well, I hope you've had a good week here and you have made lots of connections. Thank you for hopping on and telling us a little bit more about Northern Shield and certainly about your project here in Newfoundland and Labrador. So thank you very much, Ian.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope you'll be back next year.